Making peace with 2020. So what we're going to do now that you've got your paper and your water and your open mind is take some time. Take some time to reflect on what your 3 biggest challenges were in your parenting in 2020. So get out your paper, your book, and write up the top 3 biggest challenges. There's probably one in particular that will come to you instantly. Just write it down. No judgment, no filter. Write it down. It's okay if you have more than 3. We're just going to choose 3 to focus on today. You can probably, if you've got more than 3, maybe no more than 5. 3 or 5 are good numbers psychologically for the brain. So we can do 3 or 5. If you've got 5, you can probably just pause this as required so that you can cover all of them. All right, so I'll give you some examples of my biggest challenges. So I'm not a parent, but I definitely consider myself to be a part-time parent, as I often have my niece and nephew for the weekend for a sleepover. I work with children. Used to work with children full-time, now 2 days a week to get my weekly dose of time with community and with children. And one of my biggest challenges in 2020 was, which maybe have been a common experience, was that feeling of being in this pressure cooker. So I live on my own, and so I've got, costs and expenses to cover as a solo person, rent, etc. And a business, to fuel and to put my inspiration and heart and soul into and keep driving and creating content for, and all the things that go with that. And what I would find was when I would have my niece and nephew, who were 7 and, well, they were 6 and 3 at the time, for the weekend, I would find that pressure cooker I felt like I was in, as well as the pressures of meeting their needs for the 3 days that they would be in my care, I found myself to have limited patience compared to what I normally have. So I found myself snapping. I found my patience and my resources and my the resourceful state that I had trained myself to be able to access and hold deep loving space for with children seemed harder for me to access last year a lot of the time when I was with children. So that was definitely one of my biggest challenges, which might be a common one. All right, so when you've written your 3 biggest challenges, what we're going to do next is to consider what these challenges helped you uncover about what is most important to you. So, for example, one of my biggest challenges was being in lockdown for 4 or 5 months as a single person, alone, not being able to see people. This was deeply challenging for me, as one of my highest values is connection. So what that uncovered for me was just how important connection and time in community is to me. I thought I knew how important it was to me until I went without it. So with your 3 biggest challenges, when you stop and consider each one, what does it uncover about what's most important to you? And finally, what were the 3 key lessons you learned in 2020 in your parenting or relating? And they may be directly related to your 3 biggest challenges, or they may be different. Most likely they're related, but if they're different, that's okay too. So, for example, a key lesson that I learned for me in relation to relating last year was that often when I go to events, I spend a certain amount of time there because I'm quite introverted and reflective, and I top up by being alone. I kind of leave early to come back to being in my own space and my own field. Where in 2020, I got so much time being in my own space that now I have more capacity to spend more time with people and in relating. And I'm able to hold myself in that much stronger and more grounded now. Another key lesson I learned was referring to my story earlier about having my niece and nephew and having limited patience in relation to how I seem to usually have endless patience, where this, like I said last year, put a pressure cooker on that, and I was quicker to snap and lose my temper and quicker to just lose patience. And the lesson I learned from that is I wasn't implementing enough time for self-care. So meditation, reflective journaling, salt baths, processing the things that were coming up as a result of being in that pressure cooker.